People say your life changes slowly, one small habit at a time, one quiet sunrise after another, but mine changed in a single moment. A moment I almost ignored. A moment I nearly walked right past. If not for a sound I couldn't unhear. The sound that made me turn around that night was small, faint, and almost swallowed by the wind. But it was enough to stop me in my tracks. That night I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't even trying to be a good man. I was just trying to get through another shift without screwing up. I worked maintenance at a tired apartment complex on the east side of Wilmington, the kind of place where the hallways always smelled like microwaved leftovers and stale carpet cleaner. The kind of place where people lived when they were starting over, or trying to. I was in the second group. You see, I wasn't always a single dad. I didn't even expect to be a dad at all. But life has a funny way of giving you what you need right when you think you've got nothing left to give. It was early December, cold enough that my breath fogged the air, and I'd been fixing a busted water heater in building. See, the job took way longer than it should have because the pipes were older than sin, and my hands were stiff from the cold. It was nearly midnight by the time I stepped outside. Snow flurries drifted around the parking lot lights, and the whole world felt quiet. Too quiet. That's when I heard it, a tiny, uneven whimper coming from behind the dumpsters at the far end of the lot. Now I know what you're thinking. Probably a stray cat, right? I thought so too. I was tired, I wanted to go home, and frankly, I wasn't in the mood to deal with someone else's problem. But the sound came again, sharper, more desperate. And something deep in my chest tugged, that feeling you get when something isn't right and your body knows it before your mind catches up. I walked over slowly, my boots crunching through thin ice, the wind biting the back of my neck. At first I didn't see anything. Just torn boxes, old furniture someone had dumped illegally, and bags of trash that should have been thrown out a week ago. I almost turned back. Almost. But then the bag near my foot moved, just slightly, but enough. "What the hell?" I muttered. I bent down, pulled the bag open, and what I saw nearly knocked the breath out of me. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't an animal at all. It was a baby, maybe 6 months old, wrapped in a thin fleece that was soaked through. His little face was red from crying and cold, his tiny fists shaking. Someone had left him there. Someone had made the choice to put a living child on the ground beside a dumpster and walk away. For a second I couldn't move. My whole body locked up. I felt this wave of disbelief, anger, confusion, all tangled together. "No, no, no," I whispered. "Who did this to you?" The baby let out a sound so small, so broken, that it snapped me out of my trance. Instinct took over. I scooped him up and held him against my chest, trying to shield him from the wind. "You're freezing." "Okay, okay, I've got you," I murmured, though my hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone trying to call 911. When the dispatcher answered, my voice cracked. "I found a baby, behind the dumpsters at Riverstone Apartments. He's alive, but he's freezing. Please send someone now." They told me to keep him warm, keep him awake, keep talking to him. So I did. I talked to him like he was mine. "Hey, buddy. Hey, little man. You're okay," I whispered, rocking him gently, packing the icy pavement. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, something in me broke, and something else healed. That's the part I still can't fully explain. Police and EMTs showed up within minutes, sirens echoing off the buildings. A paramedic carefully took the baby from my arms. The moment I let go, I felt an ache deep in my chest, like I'd given up something I didn't realize I needed until that second. "What'll happen to him?" I asked. The paramedic gave me this practiced, gentle smile. "We'll get him warm, get him checked out. After that, Children's Services will step in." Children's Services, the words hit me hard. Because 6 years before that night, they'd stepped into my life too. See, I didn't grow up with much. Wrong crowd, wrong choices, wrong environments, you name it. I spent my early 20s in survival mode. But when my son was born and his mother walked out 3 months later, something changed. It had to. I became the guy who stayed. The guy who read bedtime stories and packed lunches and learned how to braid hair because my son had long curls he refused to cut. The guy who fought to prove to himself that he wasn't destined to become another statistic. But 2 years later, I lost him. Not because I gave up, not because I wanted to, but because sometimes life doesn't care how hard you try. He was diagnosed with a rare congenital condition and he passed before his 3rd birthday. Losing him shattered me. I quit my job. I quit trusting people. I quit hopping for anything better than the life I'd been handed. Until that night behind the dumpsters. I went home after the EMTs left, but I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch staring at my hands, the same hands that had held my son, the same hands that had held that baby. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his tiny frostbitten fingers gripping the edge of that blanket. The next morning, I called the hospital. I don't even know what made me do it. Maybe I needed to know he'd made it. Maybe I needed to feel like the world wasn't as cruel as it looked. A nurse told me he was stable, recovering, that he'd survived the night. Relief washed over me so hard it brought tears. But then she said something that stuck with me. No one has come forward. No one has claimed him. No one. Days passed, then a week. I kept thinking the feeling would fade, that once the shock wore off, I'd forget. But I didn't. Every night I walked past that dumpster, I heard the echo of his cry in my head. Every time I fixed something in the building, I wondered if he'd ever know what happened to him, or if he'd spend his whole life wondering why he wasn't wanted. I couldn't let that happen. So I walked into the county's family services office, hands sweating, stomach in knots, and said, "I want to know what it takes to become a foster parent." The woman behind the desk raised an eyebrow like she'd heard 100 people say the same thing and half of them never returned. "It's not easy," she warned. "It's not quick, and it's not for the faint of heart." "I'm still here," I said. And I meant it. They gave me forms, classes, home inspections, interviews where they dug into my past and my grief and my finances and every piece of my life I usually kept locked away. I told them about my son, about what happened, about the nights I still heard him in my dreams. I thought they'd see that as a weakness. But one of the interviewers said, "That means you understand loss. Loss teaches empathy. Empathy makes good parents." Weeks turned into months. I kept working maintenance during the day, taking classes at night. The winter shifted to spring, then summer, and every few weeks they'd give me an update about the baby, the one they'd started calling River, named after the complex where he was found. He was healthy, growing, laughing, eating well, but still, no biological family had come forward. Finally, after 6 long months, they approved me for foster placement. And I met him again. He was 10 months old by then, chubby cheeks, big brown eyes, this messy tuft of dark hair that stuck up no matter how many times the social worker smoothed it down. He stared at me when they brought him into the room, curious, cautious. I knelt down, letting him choose the distance. He reached for me without hesitation. And just like that, something inside me anchored itself again. Being his foster dad wasn't easy. Bobbies never are. He cried at night. He threw food. He hated car seats with a fury that could fuel a small city. But he also giggled every morning when I lifted him out of his crib. He crawled across the living room to chase my shoes. He fell asleep with his tiny hand gripping the sleeve of my shirt like I was the safest place in the world. Maybe I was. Maybe we saved each other. A year passed, then another. River started calling me duh and then daddy and then my daddy with this tiny proud voice that made my knees weak. I kept expecting someone to show up, a relative, a parent, anyone, but no one ever did. The adoption hearing took place last September. The judge looked at our file, at River's medical history, at the timeline of his abandonment, and she asked me one question. "Why do you want to adopt this child?" I didn't give her a speech. I didn't need to. "Because he's mine," I said simply. "He's been mine since the night I heard him cry." And she smiled, stamped the papers, and said, then he's yours forever. That evening, River fell asleep on my chest while we watched a movie. His breath was soft and steady, his small heartbeat thumping against mine. And in that moment I realized I wasn't broken anymore. He had filled the space my grief left behind, without ever trying. But here, where things get complicated. Last month a woman showed up. Not young, not old, tired, ashamed. She asked my building manager if she could speak to the man who found the baby years ago. When I stepped outside and saw her, my whole world tilted. She said, "I think I'm the one who left him." My stomach dropped. She told me everything: addiction, homelessness, a partner who controlled her, a moment of panic, a moment of regret, a moment she couldn't take back. She said she'd been clean for a year, that she had a stable job, that she'd been too afraid to search for him earlier. Then she asked me a question I still hear every night before I fall asleep. Does he ever ask about where he came from? I didn't know what to say because yes, he does. Now she wants to meet him. Not take him away, she can't legally, but meet him. Tell him she's sorry. Tell him she never wanted to leave him. Tell him she loved him, even if her choices didn't show it. And I don't know what to do. Because part of me wants to protect him from everything she represents: pain, abandonment, fear. But another part of me knows this. Someday River will want answers. Someday he'll want to know the woman whose blood runs through his veins. And if I deny him that now, am I really protecting him? Or am I protecting myself? That's where I'll leave it. Because I genuinely want to know what you would do. If you were in my shoes, if you were raising a child who was abandoned, loved, cherished, and finally safe, would you let the biological mother meet him? Would you risk the peace he's built for the truth he might someday need? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.